Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and goodbye once again. We have started our channeled messages this way a few times to just share with humanity that you are truly moving into a new way of living and being. For those of you who understand your transgressions, meaning that you have hurt another, and you own up to it, you stay out of the victim mindset and become the best version of you, you are finding much relief and release in this process. It is hard to admit and to acknowledge that you have hurt somebody, harmed somebody, damaged someone, treated them poorly, whatever it is. And when you step out of the victim consciousness of defending your behavior or justifying it, and instead embrace the fact that you are a flawed human being, which is okay, acknowledging that you have hurt someone, and then taking the remedial action of undoing the harm as much as you can, well, you will find that the universe smiles on you and your behavior. However, for those of you who continue to remain in your victim consciousness from the perspective of not acknowledging who you really are and why you behave as you do, well, you will continue to be bitch slapped by the universe or by karma or by however you choose to describe it, because this is where we are trying so desperately almost to unravel all of your bad habits, your poor coping mechanisms, your treatment of self and others that is intended to harm or spank the individual instead of acknowledging your own involvement in this process. On the flip side, you have those of you who have been in victim consciousness from a different perspective, meaning that you allow people to walk all over you and harm you. You too are being asked to stand up for yourself and to grow a pair of you-know-whats. But it is up to you and only you to become this best version of your imaginary expression of self. You each came here to learn something very specific during this time of transition. And for those of you who embrace these lessons, it will get much easier. And for those of you where you choose not to embrace them, it will get more challenging. You will have more terrifying experiences, more painful experiences, more lessons of lack and torment. And it is simply because you refuse to break outside of the cycle within which you find yourselves. It is past trauma exposure which has created your response system to almost every experience that you have. Think about that. And if you don't heal those inner parts of you, you will continue to experience those life lessons to show you where your limitations are. But more importantly, during this time of transition, they are being magnified like under magnifying glass or a looking glass or a microscope or anything that pinpoints exactly where your limited beliefs lie. For those of you who are interested in growth, it shows because you're learning so much about yourselves and your coping mechanisms, even if you don't describe them as such. You just know this doesn't feel good and I don't want any more of this. And you are speaking up and learning how to speak up best so that you can feel heard. And for those who are not interested in continuing this journey with you, well, you will see them leaving you. You will feel them leaving you. You will experience them leaving you, even if they don't actually physically leave. You will see much changing and not changing as you begin to learn how to be what you want to be. And for those of you who are struggling in your disbelief of this karmic backlash because your abusive behavior helped you to stay on top of the food chain in your mind while still bitching and complaining about those of your inhabitants who treat you poorly, well, it is coming. You will see it like a freight train barreling down on you, and you have a choice whether or not you wish to get off of the train tracks or not. But we wish to leave the bad news behind and set forth the good news of what is coming. You're beginning to see what feels good and what doesn't. You're beginning to experience which people you want in your life and which you don't. You're beginning to see people for who they really are. You're beginning to see those people who were never worthy of being in your life because their behavior and their words never aligned. And you're beginning to see people exposed for who they really are. So trust the evidence that is presented of people's inner beings. If you see a pattern of bad behavior in somebody by reviews or by experience of others in a person's life, trust to be truth. It is the red flag syndrome. Those bouquets of red flags are going to become very prevalent. And you just need to look for them. It's that simple. If you see one red flag, pay attention. If you see two, really pay attention. If you see three, run for the hills. It is a message from the universe to you. Your psyche is beginning to recognize what these red flags really look like because they just feel off. In this new energy where the veil has been lifted or has been thinned, you all are more psychically connected, whether it is from the positive side or the negative side. It doesn't matter. Energy is energy. So when you see the negative implications of people around you, whether you be on the positive side, meaning that you see somebody with those red flags, then hone them, right? Hone those red flag skill sniffing abilities. And if you are on the negative side and somebody is beginning to set healthy boundaries and hold you accountable for your bad behavior, well, hone those red flags too. Those red flags say I can no longer be with this person because they're not going to put up with my BS. This is to a certain extent what the divide between the 5D and the 3D consists of. People will begin to interact more with their like-minded individuals and will walk away more from those circumstances that don't feel good. That is what the Great Awakening and the Great Exploration is all about. Each of you is being called on your unique journey of finding self. And many of you are doing it in even the smallest ways. It is not about money. It is not about safety. It is not about comfort. It's not about security. It is about you finding you and trusting that when you find you in this journey, that the rest of it will fall into place, but not at the expense of you expressing you fully any longer. It is a new, wonderful journey that many of you are on, and it will be filled with some bumps and baubles, if you will. You'll have baubles thrown at your head and bumps underneath, but you will still see how in the long run it feels good. Every day you will get stronger, more resolute, more finished off or polished up to see who you really are and why it matters. The Great Awakening is where each soul awakens to his, her, or their destined journey. May you be open to seeking yours and finding yours, so that you too can add your stamp of approval to becoming a unicorn in this world of asses. And so it is. Namaste.